If anime is a sin, then I guess I'm gonna have to call Valkyria Chronicles a dark desire of mine. It be one in a list of many.
No, don't do it!
Alright, my name's Willy, and I'm a yell at anime for 15 minutes.
This is exactly why I hate Japan!
As I've established in my earlier videos, I'm gonna go through my criticisms first, do a little bit of exhortation. I'm not going to pretend this game isn't flawed, because it really is. Valkyria Chronicles is a not XCOM, not third-person shooter that takes place in not Central and Western Europe during not World War II. Yeah, what a biting, subtle commentary on human history, Sega. Oh yeah, it's published under Sega, and it was developed by Media.Vision, people of such fame as Wild Arms and The Wizard of Oz for Nintendo DS. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm going to hold off on the story and world building for just a little bit. I have the game on PC, but it was originally designed for the PlayStation 3. And it really shows. It runs decently enough. If it involved any more dynamic action, I could imagine it not being the greatest playing game. But it's not too dynamic, which is kind of combined praise and criticism. Though I might have implied that it's an XCOM style shooter a little bit earlier, that's not exactly true. It's more of a board game. I can imagine it not resonating with too many people. The game interjects some RPG elements that I'm just not sure they were necessary. I can understand the financing or resource aspect of the role-playing elements, though. It makes sense that you would have to allocate funds for better weapons and gear for your troops. But you have to grind for it on these repetitive skirmish levels. If you want your squad to be appropriately leveled for the later half of the game, you're gonna waste a lot of time here. And Media.Vision are totally cognizant of this. Yeah, they slap you with an achievement if none of your characters drop to 0 health past Chapter 10. This leveling system is a pretty big crutch. I think Media.Vision was just so used to having RPG elements in their games that they felt they couldn't make a game without one. It artificially lengthens the time it takes to beat the game, which is a wrong decision. There's no other way to say it. The missions themselves are already very lengthy and girthy. There's no shortage of cutscenes betwixt each mission. The game doesn't need this system to squeeze more time out of it. The player is already going to be preoccupied with other things.
Legs and hips
like a 10-year-old boy.
Speaking of cutscenes, this game occasionally suffers from that weird, stilted anime framing and delivery. Like during a dialogue scene, a pause in the speech will have one of the protagonists say something so innocent and wise beyond their years. So powerful that the doves literally flutter away so as to assist their point. Ooh, it's not always great. Further, there's some really bizarre story decisions related to the ideological lore of certain factions. Take the Third Reich. Take the Imperial Forces. The very first thing we see related to them is them gunning down non-combatants. To be fair, I guess you could argue that they were invading Brule, this country where every single person is part of a militia, so they were unsure as to whether or not their targets were secretly militia members. I also get fully aroused at the thought of privately owning a tank. Anywho, they portray the Empire as 110% antagonist. There's no moral gray area here. But then later on in the game, the protagonists are all, oh, we gotta help this wounded Imperial soldier. He's just like us. And then they meet his commanding officer who's all like, yo, war sucks and stuff. You command people to throw grenades into civilian evacuation vehicles. Just a little bit of perspective. But the evil not Nazis aren't the only people exempt from inconsistency. This fine fellow feels that war is awful and wishes that no more killing happens. The very next cutscene, he's telling you about how he's joining your squad with his tank. The tank has a flamethrower. He's completely fine with roasting people alive. Other than that, the story's pretty straightforward and non-inventive. Well, the main story, but I haven't quite reached that discussion point yet.
Willy, what the heck did he do? I thought you said you liked this game. You homo.
Look, I'll get to that. But first, a message from our sponsor. Oh, wait. Hey. I made you some coffee. It's been a while since our last personal chat. I really do always look forward to those. They let me recenter. You know, I do things that I really wish I wouldn't. Nothing illegal, just stuff that I regret. I think it's because I can't always find the time to occupy myself. And idle hands are the devil's workshop. I'd like to occupy more of that time with you. Sometimes I'm scared about what I might do out of pure boredom. But I'm never bored with you. Oh, by the way, congrats on making it through another gay intermission. What, you want a medal? Sure, why not? I know those can be a bit weird, but thank you for muscling through it. Unless you skipped, in which case... How dare you? So, how can I still convince you to buy this game? Well, where the main story and narrative framing fail, the lore and personality mechanics are actually pretty cool. This game has a highly complicated roster of troops, each with their own individual personalities, voices, quirks, whatever. The personality stuff runs deep. Everything from allergies to age plays a part in determining how well your squad will perform. Oh, cute! You're getting added to my roster for sure. Whoa, wait.
All fire teams, this is CC!
Child soldiers.
Why don't we just disregard that part for now? The complexity of the personality system is pretty funny, actually. You have to outfit your squad based on how racist your characters are or are not. You're going to have a lot of people who dislike the, Darksons. I mean, I really have no idea who the Darksons are supposed to represent. Wait a minute. Is this a concentration camp? Wait. Darkson Nomadic People Group? And that means the Darksons are... Oy vey! Oy vey! Don't buy any soap that comes out of Thousand. Never forget about the 6 million Darksons.
I don't know, Willy. 6 million Darksons? That sounds like an awful lot.
Wait, what? Who's there? Wait a minute. Do I smell Scultchman? And an Aang body pillow? It can't be.
Verisimilitude.
何の音？
Verisimilitude.
この音。I guess I should thank you for introducing another point. This game does often deal with the, Darkson calamity. The Darksons are ever so subtly supposed to represent a well-known people group throughout Europe that have, gotten some flack over the past few centuries. And by people group, I mean the Black Irish.
If you consider them people.
They're not subtle, but they're a good example of the parts of this game that I like, where story or lore elements will actually affect how the game functions. But I'll talk about that a bit later. For now, I'm just going to talk about how the game works on its own merit. First, I don't actually mind the XCOM cross third-person shooter gameplay. The game does some cool stuff to make the player more actively involved in the action that's happening. Where an XCOM-style game would have you plan out a movement and watch a cutscene of your squad complete that movement, Valkyria Chronicles gives you a feeling of direct control over how your character moves. This is completely subjective, but I just like it. I also appreciate that the RNG isn't true RNG. To clarify, whenever I play Shadowrun or XCOM or whatever, I always hate how stupid it looks whenever a character misses a shot because some RNG table said to itself, "Oh no, you didn't hit that!" Whenever I take a shot in Valkyria Chronicles, I have a clear, accurate representation of my chance to hit what I'm aiming at. And that's just...
Nice.
Another subjective favorite of mine is that all characters with guns are automatically set to Overwatch. This helps make rounds a little more efficient, in my opinion. Once again, this is totally subjective, and I really hate turn-based combat, so anything that can nullify some of my grievances with it, I will take. Function-wise, the game is alright. I don't have too much to complain about here. Finally, despite my issues with the overarching story, there's still these golden moments scattered throughout that show that the game had at least one competent writer. And I'm not just saying that because they made sure to include some fan service for me.
Rated T for huge anime
Teenagers. Why is she 12? Yeah, don't bring this game into the UK. There's good writing here, they just decided to keep it out of the forefront of the game. There are some bits of interesting dialogue in these missions that cement some of the relationships pretty expertly. They'll introduce a prejudiced character and use dialogue to explain that it doesn't necessarily make them an evil person. They might just be dealing with something, they might have just been exposed to certain ideas, or have had certain experiences that shape their opinions. Just because someone thinks a certain way, it doesn't necessarily make them an Imperial. They even make a point of stating that you can't just deprejudice people through forceful means, and sometimes not even through peaceful means. It's really just up to people to go their own way in these situations. Any change that happens inside of a person has to be a result of their own incremental decisions. The relationships you build with people, even those who might hate you, and the choices you make in your relationship with them can certainly help them to crack their narrow-minded worldview. You shouldn't ever stop showing basic decency to the people you work with, even when they can be hurtful. But sometimes people just have predetermined a decision in their head. It's not your responsibility to screech at them until they conform to your worldview. Just like you shouldn't force them to identify you by your weird otherkin gender. This game struggles with being subtle, but when it is subtle, it has some pretty great moments. That about summarizes my opinion on this. I'd give it a recommend.